Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Next Level. My name is Michael Muschket, and I'm the Weinig Product Manager here at Weinig Holzer USA. Today, we are going into our first live demonstration. I hope you guys joined in for the introduction with Christian and Andy. In our first video, we are going to talk about maintenance workshop, a little bit of the maintenance on one of our high-speed molders. So behind me here, we have the Hydromat 3000. I hope you guys saw some of our other videos that we previously made. We talked about the Hydromat 3000 before, so this is a high-speed machine that we're selling. It's one of our stock models, very popular. We did sell a lot of Hydromat 3000s this year, so I'm sure this video is going to be very helpful for you guys out there that might be one of the lucky ones to got one of those. With me here today, I have Sean Polk. You guys, I'm sure you are, everybody of you should know Sean. He's our Moulder guru here in Mooresville. And so, yeah, he will tell us a little bit more about what we will see today.
Thank you, Michael. Hello out there, everybody. Some of you, obviously, hopefully you've been seeing some of our live videos that we've done in the past, and you maybe have some idea about what we're going to talk about here today. And I believe this is an interactive thing, whereas we can have some Q&A. Is that correct, Christian? Yes. So as we're going through some of the features and some of the maintenance on the machine, including some instruction that we can get through the PowerCom system on what to look for, when to look for, and when to do maintenance on the machine. So, Michael, if you want to pop this up here. So just going through some of the quick features of the machine for any guys that have the old green beasts out there. So you can see there's just a whole lot of hand wheel or kip handles and locking handles and stuff to where we're trying to help eliminate all the wrenches that the guy has to have. It's already bad enough that we're dealing with grease guns and that kind of thing, and keeping the guy so busy with keeping tools around to be able to do the changeovers. So one of the big features is down here on the fence behind the right side. That's usually a pretty cumbersome adjustment for guys to make. Whereas now the entire fence back here after the right side cutter is simply released by a push button. You can see back here on the back side of the fence, there's some black lines coming in there. It's basically a aero hydraulics locking system. So it's a simple push button. We slide that fence to and from the cutter head diameter as we're changing the tooling. And that's a very, very fast adjustment. In the past, everybody used to hate making that adjustment, including myself. And so it was a much easier thing to do, so guys are going to do it and not leaving that gaping hole where the cutter heads are. Some other features are back here on the back. It'd be both top heads per se, but this is a little more visible. You can see we even got kip handles here on locking the chip breaker housing in place. Okay? And again, just keeping a lot more things hand available instead of having to have wrenches to turn everything. Another awesome feature on the machine now is the chip breaker units themselves. We do not have to change that chip breaker out at any point in time. We simply release 2 locking screws and we run a set screw in and out, and that carries our chip breaker to and from the cutting circle on a parallel plane. And I stressed on a parallel plane because now when we make an adjustment on our chip breaker, we do not lose the value in the chip breaker counter anymore. So we can trust that number at all times, even though we're changing tools, changing cutting circles. Another very new awesome feature is on the outboard bearings. It's still the same kind of deal, but now we just simply release this set screw and it decreases the pressure on the item. And then we unlock these clamps, roll these C washers out of the way, and take that whole assembly directly off. We don't have to lay our nuts around all over the machine wondering where we left them and stuff. Okay, so that's a quick release and a quick locking device. So you can see there's a little button on here on the opposite side. I don't know if you can get in there, Christian, but that little kind of orange colored button needs to be proud of the receiver or the unit it's in, and that just tells us that the system is pressurized. Okay, and we do now also have the same options on the cutter head itself. So as I run this in and out, I'm locking and unlocking this hydro system on the tool, the cutter body itself. So very, very cool options. Yes, we do have to pressurize the unit one time, but then it's just a simple in and out with the Allen screw or the Allen wrench to release that set screw. Okay. So this is more of a, it's tough to see here, but this is going to be a home run for you guys that do understand joining and have been dealing with a last bottom on your hydromats, be it the 22A, the 30s, anything like that. You can see it looks a lot different down inside of here, and for good reason. So anytime now that I need to make an adjustment on this lower spindle, the joiner, excuse me, got locked up there. The straight knife joiner, the profile joiner, all carries with the spindle and the outboard now. So the importance of that is the guys that are running this know that when you make an adjustment, you don't have to shut the machine off, come back and reset your stones just to come back and joint that tool again. Or risk, did I click it ahead too far or not far enough, and now I'm joining air, or I'm worse, I'm over joining the tool. So that's an awesome feature to carry with there. And you guys that understand that on those hydromats, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so as far as the front side of the machine, another feature that you can see, this is a 300 foot a minute machine, so it's a lot more robust than what we may be used to seeing. And one of the things that we do on the older machines, we had the rebuildable cylinders for your hold downs. These are now just the same type of cylinders that we run on every other machine that we have. So the reason that we had to have the rebuildable cylinders was because they all come in at a real sharp angle coming down onto these pendulum supports. And what happens there is it puts the pressure of it moving up on the bind on one side of the cylinder internally. So we had to make them rebuildable. So the way we get around that is now is we have a stronger, smaller cylinder, but we put these plates out here to keep that cylinder more directly over top of the actual pendulum arm itself. So even though there may be a little bit motion, it's still straight up and down. So it's going to make those cylinders last a lot longer. Plus you can see how robust that is. It's going to handle a lot of pressure there. Because you know some people turn their wheel pressure up a little too high. All right, one other thing, Christian, if you want to zoom over here. This is a little different system in front of the left cutter head. And what we do basically is we can stack the rollers on, but you can see they will fit inside of each other. And this is a problem that we had in the past. Yes, we could stack rollers on. However, it was just one central locking pin and one central bolt to keep it in place. And the more you stacked on, the more out of round the system would run. So therefore we were kind of holding, not kind of holding, things like that. So this is a very, very cool feature on here, and I've stacked them on and done some miking on it. Excellent. Okay. You'll notice too, these are some much larger rollers here in the front. And some of you guys with the big 30s and stuff out there, this is something that you would see. And a lot of it is to deal with the impact pressure coming in off of the feed system itself. And that helps us to absorb some of the differences in the height of coming in when we've got rough stock coming into the machine. Okay. The other thing too is we have two driven knurled table rollers here in the front, or grooved, whatever you want to call them. If you guys that are running the MDF, we can simply switch those out for some solid flat rollers. But we've got two great points of drive on the system in here. And just a quick look down through there. I don't know if you get the camera in right, but you can see there's a lot of table rollers that are functional and giving us that positive drive for the machine. I tease my students a lot and tell them you could put a horse in here, it's going to come out the other end. So anyways, that's kind of the front side. And I know this is supposed to be a maintenance thing, so I wanted to kind of show some of the things that's going to help us out as an operator on the machine as far as maintenance that's going to pop up to us on the screen. If we have our belt tensioning, we can go in and determine, do we want to make our belt tensioning done every X amount of hours or X amount of footage? And we can make those choices in here. And when it is a footage or hour thing, then we'll simply get a yellow bar that will pop up to the operator and say, hey, maintenance needs to be done. Most of the shops that are running the big machines like this are going to have some maintenance folks anyhow. So they would actually have to sign on to the system and come in, do the maintenance, and they're the only ones, and we can allocate that to where they're the only ones that can check off. Yes, it's been greased. Yes, the belts have been tensioned. Yes, the wheels have been cleaned. Yes, we've changed the fluid in the gearboxes. Only that person versus an operator going, well, I'm almost done with this run. Let's check it off. It's finished. And then they forget to tell somebody, and it doesn't get done. And, of course, we all know that's a broken part somewhere along the line, or the possibility thereof. So there's a lot of neat things that we can do, and there's many, many lines on here, but I'll just pick one. So here is a lubrication of dovetail guides. The note is all tools except for controlled axes, meaning that this is something that's going to be an automated movement. So down here we can say show, and it'll pull up that item, that line item, and here it is, the lubrication. And it's saying that we need to grease the dovetails and so on and so forth. And what it is, one shot with the lever type handgun. If there's other things, like if you have the powered guns that you might use a DeWalt to charge, and pump that stuff through there, then you need to tell them what is the setting value you're going to put to that grease so you don't blow the lines off of the nipples and stuff. Gives you the lubricant type that needs to be used and how much do we do. Yes, it says one hand pump, but if it's something that's just a metal to metal, we just need to grease it until we see grease coming out the edges. And the main reason for that is so that we're dragging grease between that whole dovetail at maximum and minimum positions. Okay?
And, one thing, so I know, Sean, you mentioned that earlier, right? So it shows you what kind of maintenance work has to be performed or what tool you use to do that maintenance work. Because what I heard before that, especially guys that have a big a hydromat, a machine where you have hydro tools, it's important to know that there's two different types of grease guns, right? So there's the regular grease gun, and then there's the high pressure grease gun. So in this case, it's good that it shows you what type of grease gun you're using, because if you use that high pressure grease gun to grease your machine, it's not going to end well. So it's obviously high pressure, so you might blow those grease lines off of the machine.
Yep. Very good. Thanks for your input, Michael. The other thing too, now we can take it even a step further, and our maintenance guy can say, what is it that I'm looking for? And simply press a picture, and it's going to show him what it is that he's going to be greasing and what to look for. Sometimes it's a belt situation or a gearbox, where the sight glass is for the gearbox. All kinds of things that can help us identify exactly what we're looking for. The grease nipple or the boot for an adjustment somewhere. And it shows us that picture of where we need to be at and what we're looking for. So PowerCom system itself is not just a system to keep the machine operating well as a Moulder running product, but it's a system to help us keep our maintenance crew on track and keep our machine running, because we all know if there's not stuff coming out the tail end of the machine, we're not making any money.
Hey Sean, so quick question regarding maintenance. So is there, if you would be out in a shop, if you would be operating this machine, would there be certain things, I mean, it's kind of maintenance, but would there be certain things that if you come in the morning and you're ready to start the machine and ready to start your production, is there certain things, certain maintenance items that you would look over the machine just to make sure the machine is ready for you?
Yes, certainly. That's a great question, Mike. We don't want to handcuff our operators as to, hey, I'm not allowed to do maintenance, that kind of thing. Yes, when he comes in of a morning or a shift change, whatever the case may be, he wants to look over the machine for sure, just to say, all right, I don't have gouges in my feed rollers. I don't have wood stuck down in between my table plates. I'm not packed with sawdust on top of my feed rollers, which all equate to either a bad product or not feeding well, which is going to stop in the machine, and we can have all kinds of other issues. So absolutely, we want our operators to be proactive about the surface of things. We certainly want to have them. We're giving them the allowance to change these heads and change these, and these are very important items, these outboards and stuff. So yeah, we don't want them to think that they're irrelevant in the maintenance situation. We want them to stay active about keeping things clean and moving, for sure. Okay. Great question, Mike.
And then is there, now the other part of the question, is there anything that you would do that the operator would do after he is done? Like when he's ready to shut down the machine, is there certain items that he should do to the machine before he leaves for the day? Blowing it off? Or
yeah, exactly. That's a good thing. It's kind of like paying it forward. Let's say if you got a multiple shift operation, I'm not going to leave a filthy machine for the next guy. So yeah, absolutely. There is a nice program or just a simple key switch on PowerCom, which when we have the automated settings would actually just take us and we say, hey, go to a tool change mode. So basically it opens the machine up quickly and allows us to blow it down, look for those chunks of wood left in there, because you're going to have blow off of a piece of wood, you're going to have knots coming out of it, things like that, just depending on the grade of lumber and everything else. So yes, we want the guy to take pride in the machine, number one, That's going to certainly help the longevity of it. And as a company and an owner, we know there are people trying to take care of the equipment, so it's going to last longer for me. So yes, we want them to be very proactive about the care of the machine. So from the maintenance portion of it, if we can keep our cables under control, we're going to walk around the back of the machine just to kind of show you what the guts of it looks like, if you guys want to hang with us.
Last month we went 30th anniversary. I didn't get a note. 30th anniversary.
So you can see from the back side, there's a lot of stuff that's, first of all, some honking horsepowers hanging off of there. Huh? So we can also see that, Christian, if you want to zoom in down here a little bit, there are adjusting screws, things that are going to be maintenance down in through here. You can see the jacking screw for the feed beam down there at the bottom. Those are things that we're going to want to make sure that when we're cleaning out and blowing out, that we're not just piling stuff up in the back side of the machine. We're not just blowing it from the front to the back. We want to make sure that we're, popping a door off and cleaning the back side like we need to. And again, doing our due diligence on keeping the machine functioning properly. So if we kind of get our cameraman to come down a little bit lower, up underneath those motors. Right here in front of this would be good. So you can see there's some very large set of double shocks underneath of there, and that is to help offset some of the horsepower that we have hanging back on those slideways and castings and stuff. So yes, that is one of the positions that is controlled motorized. So we want to assist that movement the best that we can and not put a pinch on those dovetails as it's moving. So we give it that assistance for movement, and then I don't know if you can see it or not, Christian, but back up over there, we have an air locking system that once the movements are complete, that lock will fire and secure the dovetails. So back in here, this is where the business end of things are done. You can see that we leave this open in this area, more so that we're not allowing material to get pounded in there and packed up inside of there, and then our belts start slipping and sliding, and we don't have direct transfer of the horsepower to the cutting surface. So we got to be careful with all that stuff. And leaving it open, we have found, is much better. There's actually a big hole in the bottom of the casting itself, so it's always going to let it go through. So it's real important, not just a guy to have a long wand on his blower to clean things out, but to take this door off the backside and take that extra step to get back here and make sure things are staying clean. Because if we're running from shift to shift or operator to operator, we have the PowerCom system. I keep going back to that, but it allows our operators to sign on, and we may say one operator can change tool values, another operator can change something about the profile dimensions or something. But with that being said, the others are locked out of those areas. So we know that we're running the same product every day, this month, and next year. Okay, but with that too, we can also check off some of the boxes that he is allowed to do. We may just go ahead and say, look, if this maintenance item comes up, take care of it. It's not something that we have to have the machine down for. We don't have to lock the machine out to take care of the maintenance, things like that. Just let them be active. Let them be taking pride in their machine and their work area. Okay. Michael, you got any other ideas or things you want to talk about?
Just one thing. Sometimes when I go to customers and I look at machines, I always ask them if I can take a look at them, just briefly go over if I see some things that stand out to me. What I see often is, especially on those vertical spindles on those motors, you see they're basically upright because it's a vertical spindle, obviously. But what happens often is that if the machine is running all day, sometimes there's some sawdust piling up on top of the fan. So it's really important that you clean that off. On some of the smaller machines, those motors are upside down, so the fan is on the bottom. In that case, it's even more important that the machine is clean, because otherwise you just have a bunch of sawdust piling on the bottom and blocking the fan. So that's a really important item. Just make sure the machine is clean and free of sawdust.
One other thing, if we have time, I want to point out, if you can come back over here, Christian, I want to show you the importance of this. Some of you guys that's had the bigger machines, we had those big, noisy toothed belts on these top cutter heads, or we'd have a fair amount of horsepower on the machine. It was a way that back in the day that we could best convert power to the actual cutting spindle. So to keep the noise down on those, because we got plenty of knives out front making that high frequency, we don't need to add to it anymore. It's simply a ratio that they have changed on the pulley itself so that we have more contact of the belt around the top pulley on the spindle and on the motor pulley on the bottom. So we're not really changing anything. It's the same type of system, but we're taking the noise factor away from it that was only the old way of transferring energy or power to the spindle. So now we're just putting more belt around more of the pulley so that we have more oomph and more grunt to drive through those faster cuts. And wow, the noise that it does away with, that's awesome. Okay, I think that's about it for the backside. You know, you can see just the simple little things like these covers on the gearbox edges there. So we want to keep those things covered up so we're not just getting, again, sawdust packed in. And the sawdust packed in thing is not a lack of protection or direction of dust collection on the machine. A high percentage of the time, I'm sorry, fellas, it's just not enough dust collection that the customer is providing to the machine. So we've really got to pay attention to that. The cleaner the machine is, the longer it's going to run, the better it's going to last, you know, from shift to shift, month to month, and year to year. You guys that have those green machines out there still running, you know what I mean. They're very, very, very capable pieces of equipment. And if they're still running today, you know, those are 80s, early 90s machines. So you've definitely been taking care of them well. Okay.
Sean, I have another question. You mentioned it earlier. So in the very beginning, you talked about the new style of Hydrolock, the outboard bearings and cutter heads. So, I mean, is there any maintenance associated with that new style? You said it works now with the Allen key where you pressurize it, but you still got to pump up the head or the outboard bearing initially, right?
Yeah, that's right. I kind of mentioned it there once. I hope you caught it. But yeah, we'll say that again. You do have, it looks like the same system. And here's a cutaway here of the outboard bearings, the old outboard bearings. So we had to pressurize with the grease gun and release every single time we took that outboard on and off to do a change. Okay. And then on top of that, the same process through the cutter head. Right. So the whole purpose of this and the neat thing about it is we don't have to now on the new systems pressurize that every single time. We're just doing it with a tool. We simply have a cavity that we're moving the fluid around in. We either release it or compress it. And that's what's locking those tools on now, and the outboard bearing.
Okay. And so, if is there any maintenance associated with those new outboard bearings? Like you said, you pressurize and loosen it up just by with the Allen. I mean, is there any maintenance time where you have to check the pressure, just make sure it's right on that closed system?
Yes, generally when we first use the machine or use the head or use the outboard bearing, typically once a week. Let me just flash back a little bit. Sorry. On the older machines, every day, every time we changed the shift, we had to go in, peel the outboard off, go in and repressurize the head. Every shift we had to do that. So it's outboard on and off, you know, cutter head pumping, making sure that we're hitting that 300 mark, those kind of things. Whereas now, all we really have to do is look and see if that button's out. I don't have to go through the process of taking all this stuff off. I just rotate the head, see if I can see my button out there, and I'm good.
So that means as long as the button is out, we're good, and there's no work or no action required.
Yes, that's right. There's no action required as long as that button is out there, meaning I don't have to go back in and release all these other items just to go and check it. Because in reality, I mean, you guys know it, but the more spindles you have, of course, the longer it'll take. But it's maybe 5 minutes per spindle to pull that outboard off, put the gun on, pressurize, put the outboard back on, repressurize the outboard. So it's just adding that much more time. Now, yes, it's a high-speed machine. We'll make that up through throughput, but it's just that much more time on each of those setups. And if I have to do that every shift, you know, it's just saving me a lot of time.
And it's also pretty messy, right, with that grease gun and the grease flying around?
Yes, it is very messy. It's we do have, just in case you guys are wondering, you will still maybe have some residual grease here and there flying around after we do those initial pump ups on these things. However, we do have another machine that uses completely goes away from all the hydro tooling and goes into a direct power lock tool where we can put multiple knives in there and still joint that. So little plug for the 2400 or whatever it's called today. 3000. Okay. But I'm glad you guys could spend a little time with us. I hope we clicked off a couple of things on your checklist about the 3000, the Hydromat 3000. Michael, thanks for helping us out. Christian, good job behind the camera. Is there any other questions that have popped up that we need to address?
No questions.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
The smart crew. All right.
That's right. Thank you guys for joining in. Stay tuned. We have some more videos coming up all day today and all day tomorrow. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Michael, just want to remind everybody that this is a 2-day event, and you are more than welcome to come and visit. We have all the safety protocols in place, masks, sanitization, anything you want. We're doing our best to adhere to the 6-foot rule in some cases. But anyhow, please come down or just stay involved with the videos going on throughout the course of the day.